Welcome back to another Sins of a Solar Empire 2 video. This time we are featuring the Vasari Kortul Devastator. This is the Vasari battleship that's quite tanky, quite damage heavy, and probably will be one of the mainstays of your fleets come mid to late game for this faction. Running through the stats, you have 500 durability. Start with 3,120 shield, 1620 armor points with a durability of 90, 3,640 hull points, 225 antimatter, and comes with 1 fighter squadron. Weapons on the ship include a heavy wave cannon with 30 DPS at 300 pierce, which is a significant buff up from 200, which it had before patch 1.4. The 6 beams with 6.7 DPS and 500 pierce, and then 1 heavy phase missile turret with 15 DPS and 600 pierce. Now you'll notice there's no point defense on this ship, but we'll talk real quick about the other weapons. So the wave cannon is located right here on the front of the ship, and it follows this big purple arc in the front, which looks to be just shy of a 90 degrees. I'd probably guess 75 degrees either side, and then an up and down verticality of almost the entire front of the ship. Basically mirrors this one, but up and down. Then you have the beams. You have 1 forward facing only here, and so you can see it's just this curve forward facing. You have the side one, which has a full turning radius that can get forward or backwards, and then you have the one in the back here, which is only backwards facing, and then mirrored on both sides. So I think I've talked about this in my previous videos. The beam, while it says 6 beams on here, you really can only calculate either 3 or 4 at any given time, and you can really never calculate 6 unless you're in the middle of an enemy fleet, which is, I would argue, where this ship in itself thrives. And then the phase missiles. Where is the phase missiles? Nope, I was wrong. This is the phase missile curve right here. The wave curve is this one up in front. So the waves actually you have to be facing the enemy ship that you're shooting at to do anything with the waves. The phase missiles are this big one here. You can see here it does 15 DPS with 600 pierce. I believe most phase missiles on capital ships have about 16 to 18 seconds of cooldown. So don't quote me on that exactly, but the phase missiles, it kind of does burst damage 3 times every minute if every missile gets through. And if I remember right, these phase missiles have quite a significant amount of HP, so point defense is actually going to struggle taking these down. Anyway, we'll talk real quick about the ship, and we just did the evacuator. We'll do them side by side. So we have 3120 in shield points. The evacuator's got a little bit less, of 500 shield points less. But you'll start with the evacuator, so it's still worth knowing. Armor points, you have more, and you have a 90 versus a 60, so you'll actually take less damage in armor points on the Devastator than you would on the evacuator, and you still have a little bit more of them. Where the evacuator gets tankier is the hull points at 5,430, and you'll start with 3,640. Antimatter, we note 225 on antimatter, which will get eaten into quite quickly when you're using the skills on this ship. Now, what makes this ship the tankiest of our ships is that it has a built-in shield restoration tech on it that gives you bonus shields every time you cast this. So it's in the case of this level 1, you get 12 shields per second with a duration of 24 seconds. Quick math, I think it gives you just under 300 shields or so each time you cast it, and you'll see that it's a 30-second cooldown. So the power surge, I would argue, is the best skill that you want to have on this ship. Level 1 you want it, level 2 you want it, or level 3 you want it, and level 5 you want it. You should never not be leveling this skill first. I think it's the most important skill. It's the reason the ship does damage. It's the reason that the shields get, or why it gets tanky, and the reason why it'll dish out the damage that it needs to keep up with other ships. Jam weapons is things that have been changed since the patch really is the heavy wave cannon. I believe it was 180 pierce. It was either 180 or 210. It was a weird number, but now it's bumped up to 300 pierce. And for everyone's understanding on that, really that means that any ship that you hit with the wave cannon, any subcap ship I should say, for every faction except for the heavy cruisers and then a couple of minor additions, you are doing full pierce damage with 300 pierce. If you've seen the evacuator video I just put out, because Subspace Rupture has 300 pierce, this 300 pierce for your heavy wave cannon is about the same. And this is just still, it's going to be a good ship no matter what. So if you have full upgrades versus the base one, this is a fully upgraded ship, and I'm going to jump across to them so I can select them. This ship has every upgrade unlocked on both the survival and the assault trees, so it's got full weapons and it's got full shields, or full survivability. So it's at 3,870 shield points versus 3,120. So you'll get about 750 more shields on this ship. Oh, you know what I just realized? Hang on. The shield burst tech, which is unique only to the Alliance, will give you 15% bonus shield points, which you're not going to get if you're Exodus. So if you're Alliance, you actually get a slight bump on this 3870, which would be, let's see, 12, 15. It's going to be substantial. It's going to be probably 300 or 400. So a rather nice bump in shields. Armor at 210 versus, or 2,110 versus 1620, so it looks about 500 or so armor points, and then it bumps up from 90 to 126 armor, so another 36 points there. Hull points goes from 3640 to 5,170, and then this one has not done any antimatter, so let's get that quick. Turn off debug and get those really fast. All right, so from 225 to 306 in antimatter. Max speed is 660, and then we'll look at weapons. Your wave goes up by 15 damage from 30 to 45, almost 45. Beams goes from 6.7 to roughly 10. And then phase missiles goes from 15 to 20, so very small upgrade on the phase missiles. And then the phase missile bypass chance goes from 30 to 50. Comparing to a fully maxed level 10, we're talking 3870 versus 7,355 shields, so it looks to be, what would that be, 3,500-ish extra shield. Armor is a 1,400-ish armor bonus, and then hull points goes up by almost 5,000, which almost doubles your hull points. And then antimatter goes from 306 to 551, and then your wave cannon bumps up from 44 to 70, so unbuffed 30 to 70. Beams goes from 6.7 to 15.7. And then heavy phase missiles goes from 15 to 32.4, which is quite a significant boost. We'll go through quick about the skills because this is my level 10. And then you do go from one strike craft, I believe it's level 5 or level 6, might be even level 7, where you get one additional strike craft available to the unit. So you never get more than 2. So we'll talk skills real quick. So Power Surge, I already talked about, it's your most important skill. Cooldown, it goes from 30 to 60 and then to 90. Antimatter cost also goes up from 60 to 90 to 120. Energy reload goes from 48 to 72. Shield restored goes from 12 to 24 to 36. And then duration goes from 24 to 48 to 72. So you almost have full uptime on this skill, but in itself, you're only 18 seconds short when you have this one on. I'm going to grab that one while I'm here. Jam weapons is also an important skill on this ship. The weapon reload that you debuff that you provide to enemy fleets is quite crucial. It is a 30-second cooldown, 90 antimatter. Weapon reload goes from 12 to 24 to 36. Tracking speed, which isn't as important as it used to be because tracking speeds are so high on the things that have a lot of tracking speed, goes from 24 to 48 to 72. And then duration is 18, 36 to 54. So you have a almost a what would this be, a 36 seconds where you don't have this active if you're only using one. So again, in combination, if you're using these two in combination, this is what keeps your fleets alive. When you get to mid to late game, you'll be cycling jam weapons on your Kortul Devastators to keep this debuff on at all times. And just a quick reminder, jam weapons does not stack, so you do not get a stacking bonus of 36 to 72. It's just, it applies once of 36%, and that's it. And then disrupt armor. So I strongly dislike disrupt armor because I don't think reducing armor is that significant unless you've got significant armor strength. So disrupt armor, I do believe, stacks up to 3 times. Is it? Yeah, max stacks of 3, and a duration of 12 seconds. So anytime your weapons hit the enemy, you have an 18% chance to take 18 armor off for 12 seconds. 18 armor times 3, what would that get you? 54. So you only take 54 armor off of this ship. It depends on what your pierce already is. If you're at like a 500 pierce and you take off 54 armor, you go from doing 33% damage to getting just shy of 50. So if you're already a high pierce ship, this does help if the ship is getting close to your durability. Otherwise, if you've got a bunch of like skirmishers and you're trying to shoot a capital ship that's in armor, this is disrupt armor is basically negligible. It's going to give you a few points of damage at best. So this really only comes into play if the enemy ship is heavily capital ships, but I would recommend waiting until the very end of leveling to even touch this. So it should be 3 levels in here, 2 levels in here, grab your ultimate or your volatile nanites, then come back, finish jam weapons, and then 8, 9, and 10 is when you even bother touching disrupt armor, because I personally just don't think it's worthwhile. Removing armor strength is fine, but you can only ever get 54 removed, and very few things are going to notice this debuff. And then the final skill, the level 6 ability, is volatile nanites. It has a cooldown of 4 minutes, range of 9,000, antimatter cost of 120. It increases the damage taken on anything in the radius that you apply for 60 seconds. And then if you kill anything, if you destroy any of the ships that you applied this debuff to, it does a small bubble of burst of damage in a small radius around it. So as you can see here, it does an extra 240 damage with 100 pierce and a radius of 500. And a radius of 500 is quite small. I think we're talking, if I'm doing it, it's like this. So it's going to only really do anything to clumped frigates. But what this damage taken buff will do is it gives you that bonus damage from all of the ships in your fleet. So you do want to attach this to some of the larger capital ships that have some extra heft to them, and get this little bit of bonus damage taken. So that's it for the skills. We'll go quick on the items. Nano Catalyzer Swarm, I think at level 1, level 2, and actually for the most part, I think it's mandatory on this ship. I'm going to go as far as say mandatory. This ship kind of eats antimatter early on, because as you can see here, it's only got 225 antimatter. If you're casting Power Surge on cooldown, which is twice a minute, you're using 120 antimatter as quick as you can, and you're only getting 60 antimatter back. So if you want to keep Power Surge up, and if the enemy has any antimatter draining abilities, such as a Radiance, such as a Dunov, and other ships that can take antimatter, I think it's the Subjugator. It's really the only one. Let me check my notes. Yeah, Tier 4 Subjugator would be really the only one you're super worried about. But you do want to keep Power Surge active as much as you can, and with 120 antimatter cost, I think once you're higher levels, I think antimatter is less important because your regen is going to be so high. So this is without any bonuses, and it's still at 2 antimatter a second. And then you're only using this once every 90, so you're getting 180 antimatter back in between casts of this guy here. So I'm not terribly worried about it. This one, does this one bump up? Nope. So you can just cycle back and forth between these two. Nano Repair Swarm, I think, is important to have early game on all your ships no matter what you do. I think keeping any capital ship alive early game is important. You just probably want to remove autocast on it. And I didn't talk about that. So you'd want to remove autocast off Nano Catalyzer as well. Otherwise, it'll just start casting it on cooldown, because you'll use such a chunk of your antimatter here that you just can't have it running autocast unless you really need it to. Nano Repair Swarm, it will cast this on some of the smaller ships if you're not paying attention to it. And really, you want to be using it once you're in armor on this ship or armor in another capital ship to keep it alive that much longer. Nano Attack Swarm, I talked about this in a previous video, or in my evacuator video. I think early on that this damage is quite deceptive, because as you can see here, it is 200 damage plus an extra 600 damage over 20 seconds, which is a full 800 damage, and 800 damage on this ship early game. Let's look at this one here. 800 damage on an enemy capital ship early game is going to be quite deceptive. It would essentially be like sitting in like the wave cannon alone for, what would that be, almost 30 seconds. So it's like having another wave cannon attached to this ship. So I do think sneaking some nano attack swarms on early game will help you snipe some capitals that the enemy wasn't quite expecting you to do. So consider putting these on early game. I would say late game it's not as critical, just because there's so much damage flying around that 800 over 20 seconds is kind of not that big a deal. And we're going to start, I'll show you what some maxed out damage looks like here once we have the beams and once we have the waves, along with Power Surge active, because it spikes up your damage quite hard. Beam Modulator, I do think if you have the spare exotics, I would consider actually getting this, because as you can see here, it does cost a Tauronite. Tauronites are an important resource for us because it allows you to build more Devastators and Desolators, but then also the weapons on these, and then some even planet upgrades. So you would have to monitor your Tauronite and see if you have the extras to do it. And I don't think we actually get any exotic bonuses like Advent and Tech do. No, we just get our exotics earlier. So Beam Modulator, I think, is a good one to stick on here because, as you can see, you've got 6 of them. If you're using all 6, you've got an extra 48 and then 48 to 96. You get quite a significant burst of damage. I think it's a good thing to have on this ship. The phase missiles, I'm much less impressed with the phase missiles. It's got 32 damage per second. The beams, if you count all 6 of them, which I already kind of told you not to, that's 90 DPS. Even if you're only counting 4, it's still 60 DPS, so it's a good bump. So we'll grab that. Quick unpause. Oh, it didn't buy it. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Toggle. Instant build. Nope, that's not it. What do I need to toggle? Alright, 1 second. Toggle. Instant build. Instant ability cooldown, just so we can screw with it. Why is that going? There it went. It's just slow. So I got my game speed too slow. So you'll see you go from 15.7 to 20.7 without anything active. And then I'm going to unpause it, use both of these, which now, as you can see, you've got both the beam modulator and power surge active. And now you're up at 53.1 versus 15. So you're doing a lot of damage with your beams at that point. And if you do all 6 of them, we are in the 300 DPS territory. If you're doing just 4 of them, then you're in the 200 DPS territory. So it's quite a jump in damage, and I think it's important to notice. I think the beams are worth getting if you can squeeze the Tauronite into your build somehow. Phase missiles, it did not go up, as you can see. This one's at 32.4. This one, even with power surge active, did not go up either. It's still at 32.4. So it's of note that the heavy phase missiles don't get a boost when power surge is active. And 24 missile damage is not going to really get you hardly anything. It's going to go from 32.4 to 38.1. So I'm going to argue this is not something you're going to want. Now the waves do get the bonus, as you can see from power surge active. You're at 121.2 versus 70.4, so you get almost a 50% or 50 damage boost just by getting this reload. So we'll get the wave modulator one on there. With power surge also active, you go from 74 to 183 with 300 pierce, which is quite high. So you've got heavy wave cannon in, let's say you're shooting an enemy capital ship, 182, it bumps down to basically 60 versus a 500 durability ship, which is not bad in any means, but it's not doing great. And then the beams go to 150, or will still do most of your damage. But heavy wave cannons will help you clear everything else while you do it. Phase attenuated shield. So shield regen in combat does not stack with shield restored. Shield regen and shield restored are 2 different stats. I would say if you need it in combat, I think it's worth getting. It's going to give you a little bit more tankiness to it. It's going to maybe save you against some other Vasaris. It might save you against some other enemy ships if you need the regen. But it's not gonna, I don't think it's as strong as it used to be. Inertial anchor, it makes sense, I think, to have one of these active at all times around your ship, just because of the bonus that it gives you to keep missiles off of your ship. gives your point defense ships a chance to do a bunch of that phase missile or a bunch of missile clearing. So having this nearby is good. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be on this ship because you're already going to have some issues finding space for it, because I still think that Nano Catalyzer might be worth getting. I would say Nano Repair you should try to keep one on any ship as long as you can afford it. And then I would say the 2 offensive weapons, if you can spare the Tauronite, are musts to have as well. And then the other big one I really, really like is the self-repairing armor. It gives you the in-combat armor points regeneration. Let's see if I can do some damage to the ship. Damage is Control D. So I'm going to do some damage to this guy. Alright, so you got 18.6 in shield regen. You have 9.7 armor regen because you have this active. It probably also used the active, which is why it got that chunk of armor back. And then you have hull repair of 17.6 at this point once you're level 10. So you're getting a whole bunch of shields. You're getting a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm going to actually even put that on there. So that gets you to 37.2 shield regen per second. Of note, the Alliance, if you have shield burst, this will not let your shield regen while you're trying to charge shield burst up. So just be careful of that. And then shield regeneration, there says 37.2. That does not include the 36 shield restored per second because they're 2 different stats. And then Strikecraft armor, I don't think is worthwhile on this ship. As you can see, you've only got 2 Strikecraft. You don't care if your Strikecraft are living or dying on the ship. They're just there to soak missiles or soak enemy point defense. Gravity stabilizer. So we did talk that this is 660 max speed. Putting this on your ship will bump you up just a little bit to 739, which is actually quite fast. You will be faster than a base Marauder. You will be faster than any carrier for any faction. At that point, you're faster than a Halcyon for the Advent, which is, I think, 700 move speed. And then I think you're faster than all of the tech base speeds on all of their capital ships. So if you intend on chasing or if you intend on running, I would say that the gravity stabilizer is good. The max turn speed is going to also get your wave cannon onto targets quicker. So this one, if you can get into the tier, I think it's tier, where is it? It's tier 3 Empire. If you can spare the research and then spare the Kalinite, I would say that actually might be worth getting. Resonance amplifier, I talked about it in my last video. I don't think this is ever worth getting because hopefully you're not sitting in gravity wells too long as Vasari because of phase resonance period, and you're just doing a better job of managing that if you're using a buff to this ship. Antimatter recharger, we briefly talked about it. I think it's too expensive for the antimatter regeneration it gives you. As you can see here, I don't even know if I have the research. Okay, I do. So you're still getting 2 antimatter per second just by itself here. And that's just base with no additional changes to it. I think you should have a nano catalyzer swarm on at least a couple ships in your fleet at most times. And if this starts to get low, I would say then you just use it from that ship instead. I like to have at least one of those on each of my Scarantras and each of my evacuators, and just kind of use them as utility ships. And that should keep your antimatter up all by itself. So I don't think that having the antimatter recharger on this ship is worthwhile. And then unique in the Exodus is the infrastructure. I would not recommend putting any of these on the Kortul because this ship has to be in range of enemy ships to do damage. And it is your tankiest ship, it is your highest damage ship, so you want it close in, and you're probably going to lose a bunch of them in fights. So you don't want to have any of these vital infrastructure items on this ship. And then mobile resonance capacitor is a tier 5 upgrade. If you're at the point where you're managing this, I would recommend not putting it on this ship. And then real quick on minor factions. As far as items go, if you do colony save nanites, if you do this as your second capital ship, you can go in the opposite direction of your evacuator and back colonize or side colonize with just this ship. So you might grab this early game just to grab gravity wells that you can clear. You can soak solo experience on it, and I think it actually might be worth having. I don't have anything else done, but the I'm going to blank on it. Let's see if I can get minor. Open minor factions window. No, I don't have the ability to do that. I was going to say I could maybe just reveal them all and see if I could get them, but not important. There's one that gives you plus 20% ship experience and minus 20% cooldown. That would be a good one to put on here. And then using something like crippled hull if you are on the way out of a gravity well, drop something off your ship and put this on because it's instantaneous and it doubles the hull points that you have in crippled. So it might just save this ship if it becomes a problem. I think that's it for ship items. We'll talk phase resonance. I said this in the other video that I just did, that you get 12% max speed. If you can't get to mobility 4 or mobility 5 with a whole bunch of phase resonance that you dropped, then I don't recommend getting it at all, because I think phase jump speed is a terrible stat to have to manage phase resonance with. So even let's say you jump into an enemy gravity well, you've got 2 minutes to either win your fight or chase them out and chase them. And if that's the case, your phase jump speed is not going to save you that much. Even if it takes you 10 seconds to jump, normally then you're getting 7 seconds to jump. And yeah, you might beat something to the other gravity well, but I don't think it's worth it. But the max speed is one that's worth it. So if you can get to tier 4 or tier 5 on mobility, I think that's a worthwhile upgrade. Combat, as you can see here with energy or with power surge active, that reload speed is quite ludicrous. You will melt through enemy ships with this, and I think that it's important to know that just even stacking any reload or any damage onto this ship is going to make it quite ridiculous. So getting any points in combat is going to be good. And then utility, I don't think that the antimatter cost is a super big deal for you. What you really need on this ship is the cooldown, so that you can start having power surge overlapping with itself. And then the extra antimatter cost bonus is just a bonus that you get. But getting to 36% cooldown, you will already have the cooldown will be under the duration at that point. Let's see, what would it need to be? 9, 18, so it only needs to be 20. So just getting utility 4 will get you to overlap on power surge, and then getting to utility 5 gets you pretty close to having overlap on gem weapons all by itself. So utility is good, but you really want to get into tier 3 or tier 4 for cooldowns for this ship. And then otherwise you want combat. This thing will jump in. You get all that bonus cooldown or reload damage. You don't really care about the phase missiles too much because this ship is not phase missile bound damage, but it'll get your beams and your waves to do that much more damage. As far as upgrades go, You can, this upgrade, the pulse doesn't do anything. If you are into both wave and beam, I would actually prioritize beam. As you can see, this is what's going to kill your enemy capital ships, and you can get only a 12% at tier 2, and you get 24% at tier 2 for beams. It'll just make your beams spike that much harder. And then wave turrets and wave range. So the wave weapon on this ship is not actually a turret, so that doesn't do anything. And then the 10% range, the only thing I would say is make sure that you are in range to be using your beams, because the wave cannon will outrange the beams at that point, and you may not even be using them if you're not paying attention. Especially if it's something that's already got longer range than you, like enemy javelins, certain titans, enemy canracks, basically any of the missile ships that are over the base ranges. But the bigger stuff that comes in will be in range to shoot you. And then really quick, I'm going to switch to this one here, and we're going to grab a base battleship, and we'll drop in, what should we drop in? Coal. So these two fight each other. Turn off debug mode. I'm going to grab power surge, and then I'm going to grab, what does it have for research? It has nothing. I also have nothing on the blue team. So if you see these two fight, they'll fight each other. Let's make sure that these don't do anything. There we go. So you'll notice here that the coal actually does a pretty good job of staying alive, and we'll keep an eye on just these two here. You get through the coal shields quite quick. The coal struggles to get through your shields because you're regenning so much. But once you win this fight. Like oh, that's why I had this in the way. This guy was cheating. Go away. Let's try it again. So we got a pause it, coal. Grab the battleship here. Level that up. And level up Fusillade, which is the one thing that they really need. So we'll send it and go. So you do have fighters. The fighters add minimal damage. They're not going to do anything. But again, you kind of win this early fight just because your shields regen so high. There's not much that they can do. So you do beat a coal, which I think most of us would agree is expected. So we'll get back into this. We'll add another capital ship, and we'll do an Advent battleship here. You grab power surge, switch to Advent. So this is where it becomes a question for Advent. Do they grab detonate antimatter and take all of power surge away, or do they grab energy absorbing armor and stack some extra reload and win the fight? We'll try it with the reload just to see what it does, because I haven't done this fight myself. They're both going to grab a derelict and get some experience. So it's close. Fighters versus fighters. They're fighting each other. They both got a level. We'll grab detonate antimatter, see what it does. And it looks like the Devastator's probably going to win just because you're not getting through armor. And again, this doesn't have any in-combat stats going, as you can see. So you'll win at level 1, level 2 against the battleship, against the Advent Radiance. There, that'll delete it. Okay. So you do win 1v1s against these ships, at least for a while. I'm not going to go too far into the levels and experiment. But most fights, as I'm sure you're all aware, are not 1v1s in this game. So everything that helps either side really kind of will tip their favor. Ships you need to look out for in the enemy fleets. You can't do anything about bombers. So a heavy bomber fleet from Advent or a heavy bomber fleet from Tech, really you can't do anything about. Advent, if they go with a significant number of drone hosts or tempests, can melt you. Illuminators can absolutely melt you. Destras do a significant amount of damage because of their high pierce, but their supply is kind of inefficient. So Advent has that, and then they've got other ships that you need to worry about, like the Radiance there, as you saw, has detonate antimatter, which removes antimatter from you, does damage to you, and also prevents you from casting skills. Halcyon can kite you if it runs enough bombers, and the bombers can beat you. Revelation isn't scary. Progenitor is not scary. And that's pretty much it. And then with Tech, you kind of have to worry about mass stillets because you can't kill the corvettes quick enough. And they do have 400 pierce, so they'll get through you pretty quick, and you don't have any point defense to deal with them. If there's enough Gauss frigates, they will punch through your shields pretty quick, and I know that they've got low damage, but if there's enough of them and you don't have small ships to deal with them, they'll punch through before you can deal with them yourself. Percheron with mass bombers can also deal with you because you don't have any point defense, but maybe your shield regens enough depending on how many bombers they have. Javelins you have to be careful for in mass because you can't deal with their pierce. Too many Harkas can get through you because they now have 300 pierce and essentially do 33% damage. And then Ogrovs, if they can get you, I saw in another video that they do about 500 damage per torpedo. So if there's enough of them, they can punch through you. Against Vasari, the 2 corvettes will actually kill you in enough of a mass because your beams are the only thing that can hit them. And if they have any in-combat regen, whether it's hull or shield, you just won't get enough damage to stick. So you need your own supporting fleets to deal with those. Canrack. Enough Canrack will melt through you just like any of the other high pierce missile, just like Javelins. Wardens you don't really need to deal with. Oppressors. You will have to deal with oppressors, kind of like you do with Harkas. And Illuminators, just because they all have kind of high pierce values at this point. And then, weirdly enough, the Penetrator. If an enemy Penetrator has, or if an enemy has enough Penetrators, they can kind of chunk through you, especially if they have the stacking damage bonus, and they'll surprise you with damage. And then, I forgot to talk about Tech capital ships. Sorry, I'm going to zoom in on some ships so it's pretty. So the Tech capital ships, if there's enough coals with enough levels, they'll actually punch through you pretty quick. So you would need to be aware of how many they have. The Dunov can steal antimatter from you, can shield its own allies, and then also slow you. So it's kind of a headache to deal with, but it won't kill you. It'll just allow its other ships to kill you. Sova can kind of kite you with bombers, can build stillets in system, and so there's not much you can do to them if they get to that point. So it'll just stay far away from you anyway, and just keep building Corvettes, and you'll never be able to kill the Corvettes. Marza is a problem if you leave it alone, especially if it gets level 6 and has any buffs on it. The stun definitely doesn't help, but your shields will regen during the stun. And what else? What was the last one? Akon, you don't have to worry about Akon, it doesn't do damage. And then against other Vasari, you have to worry obviously about the enemy Kortul. Any buff and stats that he has that you don't will just have you either die quicker or let him stay alive longer. You do have to watch out for Desolators as well, because those missiles will do quite a significant burst of damage to you. If they're leveling Phase Missile Swarm, which I think they should be. And the Evacuator, you have to watch out for Gravity Warhead, but otherwise that's pretty much it. Skrantra is not going to usually carry bombers. They're going to probably be fighters. And Marauder is not really a DPS ship, so you don't have to worry about that. So yeah, that's the Devastator. Again, I think that come early game, I think it's nice to have at least one early game, if not more. What was I going? I was also going to look at ship orders. So for Vasari, we all know we start with the Evacuator. If you want to go Kortul Devastator, the only other ship you can get, or the only other capital ship you can get after you build the Devastator, is you can either go for a second Evacuator or you can go for a single Marauder. You cannot build a Desolator and you cannot build a Skrantra if you go with a Kortul. You would have to find, I think you'd have to find 2 whites to be able to build a Skrantra, or you'd have to find a second white if you go if you start Evacuator, go Kortul, and then go Skrantra, or you would have to find 2 Tauronites to go to a Desolator, which is tough to do these days, especially because even on the home world, you've only got a 50% chance of an exotic early game. So I think that's it. Again, I think Kortul's a good ship. I think you should be pumping them out as soon as you can. Once you get into tier 2 and you're starting to build more of them, get the experiences when you can. I think that the 2nd gen cruise is probably as far as you go, because if you get to tier 4, the game's gone quite long and you're more looking at Titans and not 3rd gen cruise. And this ship is not a great Titan killer. The Desolator's the better of the 2 for the Titan killing, but this is your 2nd best behind, or 3rd best behind Titan, Desolator, and then this guy. So that's it. Leave a comment in the section below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I screwed anything up, because I'm still learning. I'm still getting back into the game. So thanks again, and hopefully you learned something. Bye.